70,000 years ago, a head-scratching virus picked up on what eventually became humanity. And since then, it has taken from this to this. The carrier of this virus is language, enabling the transfer of knowledge and experiences between individuals, but also the emergence of abstract thought. Initially, knowledge transfer was highly localized since language was oral. With the advent of writing, we achieved knowledge transfer that had separation in time. Paper and books pushed this further, making knowledge transfer somewhat global. And finally, the telegraph essentially eliminated space as a consideration. Knowledge could spread around the world instantaneously. After the telegraph, we got radio. And the main new feature of radio was the capacity for broadcast. At that point, we could actually transfer knowledge at near zero marginal cost per receiver. Following that, during the 20th century, we had television, which is basically radio with pictures. And near the end of the 20th century, something truly revolutionary happened. While TV had about 100 channels, the web has about 100 million channels. Now, to think of the web as something that has 100 million channels kind of misses the point. The true point of the web is that for the first time ever, we had near zero marginal cost per writer. This meant that to contribute to world knowledge, one does not need a printing press, a radio tower, or a TV station. Humanity actually grabbed this opportunity to produce knowledge and has since then written for pretty much everything up under the sun. This is a forum describing what's happening in Mount Athos. This is a website that deals with Greek high school physics. This is maintaining bees in Corfu. This is a website about spear gun hunting in the Greek summer. Finally, this is a website, a Greek website dedicated to waterproofing, which has been translated in over 50 languages. Now, this entire body of knowledge, we call it the web, and by now it's completely enormous. I'd like to argue, though, that the web on its own is effectively useless. To make my point, try to imagine a day of using the web without having access to a search engine. Search is precisely what makes the web useful to us. Another way of understanding the importance of web search is to think in economic terms. In today's prices, Google is worth more than Boeing, General Motors, and Goldman Sachs combined. Now, we tend to think of web search as I go to a website, I type in a word, then the search engine searches and gives me back results. The reality of web search, actually, though, is completely different. Search engines constantly monitor the web. And what they do is they maintain a permanent index from words to links. This index changes as pages are added, removed, or have their authoritativeness on a certain topic shift. Now, even with search and even with an enormous web, I would like to argue that this is a tiny fraction of world knowledge, because most of our everyday experiences and knowledge that we acquire stay inside our brains. Now, there are two reasons for this. The first one is privacy. There are lots of things that we would be happy to share with friends and friends of friends, but we wouldn't necessarily want to share with everybody. The second reason, which in my opinion is more important, is that as things stand, to externalize the content of our brain, we have to express it in language. In this context, that would mean writing, an operation which is actually quite taxing, as every author knows. What I would like to propose is to take the public aspect of each one's brain and make it effectively searchable on the web. To do this, we need two things. We already have the first part. We know how to go from words to links. What we need to build is an index from links to our brains. Now, you might say, okay, this sounds rather crazy. How are you going to do this? The web is not going to index your brain. Okay? But there's one essential observation, which is that instead of building the forward index, we can actually build the backward index. And this is because in today's Western world, there is a very dramatic correlation between our everyday life and what we actually do when we're web surfing. Okay? To put it bluntly, what's in my brain is very often in my browser. For example, when I was preparing this talk, I started by looking up this wonderful lemma in Wikipedia about the origin of language. I then spent countless hours learning about this topic, and I wish I could share it with you today, but there isn't enough time. The point is that all this knowledge is actually now inside my brain, but that fact is not captured anywhere. Being a mathematician at the same time, I'm probably not the obvious person that someone would go to ask about this. So here's what I'd like to propose. I'd like to propose a mechanism that makes it possible to capture the fact that I know about this topic. And my proposal is very concrete. What I'm suggesting is that we add one button to the browser, such that when we push this button, the semantics are as follows. I have knowledge about the subject matter of this page that I am willing to share with others. In short, I'm into this. Okay? This is something I know about. So this is my tagging. This is what I propose. Now, not only did I look up Wikipedia, but motorcycle is something I actually enjoy very much. My bike broke down last week. I generally like to work on it myself. So in order to fix it, I visited this truly wonderful website that has been built by people who own the same motorcycle as I do. And I looked up the appropriate procedure, and I changed the coolant in my bike. This took a while. I actually had my laptop by me all the time. And eventually, when I finished, I simply said, I'm into this. Now, what does this mean? Observe that this carries very deep semantics. It doesn't just mean that I know how to perform this procedure. It also means that most likely I am an owner of such a motorcycle, and that probably I have some general motorcycle knowledge. Now, let's see. Okay. To sort of reward myself for fixing the bike, I decided to treat myself to a nice meal. There is a restaurant nearby here that I actually like a lot, so I wanted to call up and make a reservation. I don't know the phone number, so I just looked it up on the web. Okay? So I go to the web, I look at the number, I call them, I make a reservation, and at that point I know that shortly I will be there and I will form a definitive opinion about this restaurant. So again, I tag it. Why? Because I have knowledge that I am willing to share with others about the subject matter of this page. Here's what a concrete implementation of this mechanism would look like. We already have web search. Now imagine that each of us tagged pages in the manner that I just described, and these URLs, those links, were stored privately, say perhaps as part of a hidden Facebook profile. So these are not publicly visible. They're associated with each person, but they're not publicly visible. Now, when someone types in a query, the query already generates results in the form of links. The next step then is to take those results and filter them through the union of links in my extended social network. And to filter them simply means to look not necessarily for exact matches, but also for near matches. Because at this point, web search engines can actually do this. Finally, if there is a match, the two people that hold that information, along with the link that they've indicated to demonstrate this fact, get presented to me along with the results. This would be a concrete implementation of this scheme. Now, I mentioned that web search engines are capable of saying whether two URLs are alike. There are also other amazing things that they can do. For example, we think of web search as a map from words to links. But from the point of view of a search engine, it's just as good to go from links to words. In other words, search engines can ascribe appropriate words to the pages that we're already visiting on the web. And we can use this to greatly refine the mechanism that I just proposed. So here's concretely again what I'm proposing. This is the web page for an impact drill at Amazon.com. There is enough information on this page for a search engine to figure out that this is a physical object. As a result, an appropriate tag would be to say, I own this. If I actually do this, something that I can do right before I bought it or right after, the next time that someone in my wider social network is looking for an impact drill, rather than going out and buy one, they might as well borrow mine. This is the web page of a wonderful French violin maker who lives and works in Athens. Again, there is enough information on this page to figure out that this is a place of business. And therefore, appropriate tags for it would be to say, I'm a customer, or I work here. Again, observe that clicking, for example, I work here, carries tremendously deep semantics for any one of you who will be looking for a violin in Athens. This is a shameless plug. This is the place where I work, and observe that it's one of the top 100 computer science departments in the world, the University of Athens. Again, there is enough information on this page to figure out that this is an educational institution, and therefore, appropriate tags would be, I'm a student, or I actually teach here. Going back to Amazon, I have to admit I spend a lot of time on Amazon. This is my favorite book of all time. It's called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and I often find myself on Amazon buying it as a gift for friends. Just like before, there is a ton of information on this page to make it abundantly clear to a search engine that this is a book. And therefore, appropriate tags would be, I read it, I love it, I hate it, or actually I found this book rather boring, so I started it but didn't quite finish it. Finally, consider all the people who visit the website for TEDxAthens. They could be interested in TEDx, they could be participants, or they could be speakers. Each of them can then go ahead and tag appropriately. This is the idea I would like to share with you today. Thank you.